we're never stagnant. We are constantly evolving in some direction determined by our environment. So I think that, in the next few decades, we will be, very similar, but in the next few hundred years, we probably will evolve in some shape or form. Now, it doesn't mean that we're turning into robots or something like that, but, these enhancements can also just entail genetic engineering, that you just genetically engineer yourself to be able to live longer. So let's say 150, 250 years or something like that. It's very early to say whether or not it is possible or whether what will happen, but theoretically it is possible. As I said, we're already working on with some gene editing technologies that have like proof of concept to back it up. So I think people probably aren't going to willingly change their physical body, like they're not going to be turning into robots, but they will be able to, okay, I'm going to turn off my gene that increases my risk of heart disease or Alzheimer's, for example. Yeah. Those are kind of things I think people will, over the course of time, will become more acceptable of. And, when it does happen, then technically we will be, you could consider ourselves, like the next Homo, whatever you want to call it, Homo evolutionist or whatever. Homo Deus, as you all know how he said.
It's fascinating because I know we're at the moment at Copenhagen Health Week, and there's a lot of people that are going to be pushing back on the idea of gene editing. We're natural, we should focus on the natural stuff and all that. But when we start thinking about the opportunity eventually, maybe in the next 15, 20, 30 years, to simply turn off something that could lead, a gene that could lead to cancer, heart disease, etc. Then when you start thinking about embryo selection, which some people think will be the greatest breakthrough of this century, then it's an interesting conundrum. I think initially people are going to be very skeptical, very worried. There's going to be huge ethical questions. But I think as more and more people do it and realize the benefits, it's probably going to be a kind of simple move from early adopter innovators to it being more mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, people don't want to get cancer, right? So people don't want to get heart disease, and people don't want to get Alzheimer's. If you can just like reduce your risk of these diseases exponentially, then I think most people will do it just for that reason.
Yeah.
And I think that would be slowly adopted over time. So, they are of embryo selection, etc. That's obviously a bit of a different topic, but when you're talking about chronic diseases, comorbidities that reduce the quality of life and shorten lifespan, then I think that's pretty much, most people will just, want to do that.
You don't wear a wearable. And there's a lot of the top biohackers that are, measured in every single capacity, every organ, every bit of their skin. Do you think the biohacking movement has gone too far in this kind of almost type A obsession around kind of incremental improvements to the point where they can't even intuitively tell what their body's telling them?
Right. Well, I think data can be very powerful, and data can be very useful as well. Whether or not your intuition is better or the data is better, I think that is very depends on the person and which one they prefer. So, some people are just, okay, tell me what the data says and I'll act according to that. Whereas other people's, they want to listen more to their emotions and feelings and then act according to that. Because people are different. Evolutionary speaking, we are different because different personalities and different physiologies served a particular purpose.
Yeah.
ADHD and let's say certain different personality types, they all served some purpose. And there's a reason why we have such a variety of different types of people in the world. Now, it's interesting, in the future, would there be some sort of a natural selection towards certain types of personalities that the personality types that are most successful will become successful in the future? I don't know. So, because I guess the question is there something which one would be like ethically more, I guess I'll run into a...
No, I agree. So it's funny because we had this exact conversation with two longevity investors. Sebastian Brunmeier talked about this, and he said, actually, apparently, the smarter someone is, the more, I think, kind or something. They've done some studies, because I really pushed back on him and saying, when we start having embryo selection and gene therapy, which is really insane. I don't know what I think now about embryo selection, because one might deem this intelligent being who is type A to be the kind of optimal human being. But what happens all of a sudden when you have a whole country of people that are exactly like that? Like, are they able to work together and all that? There are so many ethical questions. We've evolved, as you know, as someone who studied anthropology, we evolved through tribes to be different to one another, to sleep differently, to eat differently. And it's so we could actually work together as a tribe. So when we start messing with that, we're literally messing with possibly the fabric of society.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's not something that is forced on. Like, you don't need to track things, right? So you can live a very mindful lifestyle and more, I guess, intuitive lifestyle. So as long as it's not forced on people, then I think it's an issue.
As in the gene therapy or the gene editing, or like the wearables or whatever.
I don't think you will be forced to do that, right? So there's always going to be people who don't want to do that. They don't want to take supplements. They don't want to do anything like that. So that's fine.
But the question is when there's going to be a tipping point. When you think about like the splitting off as people start enhancing themselves. And again, I've spoken to Aaron D'Souza of Enhanced Games quite a lot about this. But when people who don't want to enhance themselves, are we just going to basically have a two-tiered system where you've got people that can all of a sudden work 100 times harder, they can sprint 100 times faster, then it's going to be a really important question to ask. And when you think about freedom of choice versus a government, in the same way that governments vaccine and they do whatever, like, is there going to be a point where they're like, well, actually this 63-year-old can't survive in this environment because the world's so fucked right now, they're going to have to enhance themselves? These are big questions, right?
Yeah, well, I think if we're in a state where we can enhance humans in a way that makes the enhancement makes you 3 times more stronger, smarter, faster, etc., then in that scenario, where I think we're already in like a post-scarcity society in that case, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like then you're gonna have things like universal basic income and just safety nets of the society that even if you're not enhanced, you're not going to be homeless or something like that. If that makes sense. That if in a world where you can choose to enhance yourself, that's like a post-scarcity society already.
Thanks for watching this Beyond Tomorrow clip. If you haven't subscribed yet to our main channel, join us there for conversations that can help you thrive today and flourish tomorrow. We'll see you next time.